I speak to some of the Sri Lankans, they say that successive governments have failed them. Shouldn't there be something on the political front that should be taken as well, as far as political parties are concerned, to ensure that there is political stability for Sri Lankans who left to come back, and to also prevent more Sri Lankans from leaving the country?
We can't be doing politics in everything. Particularly on economy and reconciliation, there has to be broader consensus and work towards it.
Foreign ministry is very much politicized these days, that we have more political appointments in the foreign service.
There are some exceptionally good outside career officers. Like if you look at you are in Australia, just speak to some of your Sri Lankan friends there and ask how was Mr. Skandakumar. He was from the private sector. So if you look at our ambassador in Washington, our High Commissioner in New Delhi, they have done a lot of good work for Sri Lanka in a very challenging time.
One particular individual's appointment has drawn a bit of attention these days. That is, of course, Bogallama, former foreign minister.
So it was a well thought out decision. We think his previous experience and some of his contacts which he have had over a period of time as the foreign minister, and before that also he had a stint representing UMP in democratic unions in London, may help him to perform his job.
Are some of these countries sort of fighting for a stake among themselves in Sri Lanka? I mean, India, China, they have issues among themselves, Pakistan, then the US. Some feel that Sri Lanka has become a battleground for these countries.
Yeah, with that comes opportunity too. Sri Lanka, because of our location, because where we situate, because our relationship with all these countries, comes a lot of opportunity. I mean, in a world which is increasingly becoming multipolar, so this is natural. So globalization is taking place, and everybody will vie for their influence here.
Hello and welcome to another episode of On Fire here on Daily Mirror. I'm Easwaran Rutnam. The Sri Lanka Foreign Ministry has been in the spotlight these days. Sri Lanka's foreign policy is, of course, very important, considering that we are reaching out to a number of countries for foreign assistance. But of course, there are other issues that have also drawn the attention of the local media. So on the program today to discuss Sri Lanka's foreign policy and some of the allegations that have been coming up these days is Foreign Minister Ali Sabry. Minister, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Easwaran.
My pleasure. Of course, just to remind our viewers, I'm joining you from Australia, as a result of which we are doing this program virtually. So Minister, let's just start off by, of course, we need to discuss Sri Lanka's foreign policy, but the foreign ministry is also in the spotlight these days for various other reasons, especially in the local media. So I'd like to, just draw a bit of attention to those issues and get your response to that. Firstly, of course, about this allegation that the foreign ministry is very much politicized these days, that we have more political appointments in the foreign service. How would you react to that?
No, that's not entirely true. I mean, for a long period of time, countries like Sri Lanka and countries in the region have always had a fair balance between the professional foreign service officers and from other officers from the outside of the foreign service. It had been sometime in 2012, 13, 14, it had been about 65-35. Now it's about 50-50. That is because we also had not recruited for a long period of time to the Sri Lankan Foreign Service, which we are rectifying now. We have a cadre vacancy, a cadre position about 266 officers, but we just have 168 of them. So we don't have senior officers to man all the stations all over the world. And we also need about 22 divisions in Sri Lanka, like the Economic Affairs Division, UN Division, the West Division, the South Asia Division. So those also had to be headed by senior diplomats. So this is an ongoing issue. I think never we will have 100% foreign service officers, but there is a fair balance. What we are trying to do is to increase that balance and tilt towards the foreign service, which is what we did when last time we appointed in September 16 officers. 13 of them were either foreign officers or former foreign service officers.
So, would these, political appointments serve our needs? Obviously, they have to go there and negotiate with the respective countries and bring the sort of assistance that we expect and so on. Are they, what's the word, knowledgeable enough to deal with the issues and bring to the table what Sri Lanka is expecting?
Yes, it depends. There are some excellent foreign service officers. They have done extremely well. But there are some foreign service officers who have got through the exam, but then they are very ordinary. But there are some exceptionally good outside career officers. Like if you look at you are in Australia, just speak to some of your Sri Lankan friends there and ask how was Mr. Skandakuma. He was from the private sector. So if you look at our ambassador in Washington, our High Commissioner in New Delhi, they have done a lot of good work for Sri Lanka in a very challenging time. So it's unfair just to categorize them in one or paint all of them with one brush or one pen. It is up to them. We have to pick some of them and appointed them. And they have generally done a good job. I think with lot of limitation. It's easy to find fault with, but I am traveling very extensively, looking at all these areas and all. Diplomats work very, very hard. Sometimes I get their notes at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. They do work very, very hard. So there are exceptions, but generally, when I told the numbers of the diplomats whom we have to man 55 missions all over the world, some of the Western diplomats were shocked, with 166 diplomats, we are running a foreign ministry.
Of course, one particular individual's appointment has drawn a bit of attention these days. That is, of course, Bogallama, former foreign minister. Do you see an issue there? People are raising questions as to, why he's suddenly being brought in. How would you defend his nomination?
Yeah, I think what we thought was his previous experience as a senior diplomat, at the Sri Lanka's foremost diplomat, the foreign minister, will come in handy in a station like London. It's a considered decision by the president and on our and the decision makers. So President concurred with me. Discussed with me too. So it was a well thought out decision. We think his previous experience and some of his contacts which he have had over a period of time as the foreign minister, and before that also he had a stint representing UMP in democratic unions in London, may help him to perform his job. We also actually need some senior personnel to man these stations in view of lack of foreign service officers to man all these stations, because we need them also be here in Colombo in some of those very important posts and desks.
Of course, the other issue is not an issue, but something that has been drawn the attention of the media is you personally, your overseas visits, whether these were necessary at this moment, and the apparently or the allegation about the funds that are being utilized for this visit. What's your reaction to that, Minister?
No, that is ridiculous. I think somebody getting hurt because we are going and getting a lot of things achieved. I mean, we don't just go on trips when we get a invitation for a multilateral engagement or a bilateral engagement or a regional engagement. The desk at the first look at all the options and look at the participation level and give us a recommendation whether what level of participation is necessary. Then I sit with the secretary and find out which level of participation. Thereafter, I consult the president whether I should go or not. So accordingly, only when it's absolutely necessary, I travel, because it's not like traveling for you with your family on a holiday. Traveling is not a joyride. It's a very, very difficult job. It puts you into permanent jet lag, and then it's a thankless job in that sense. But this is some people seeking cheap publicity and create sensation out of everything. And what have we done? We have gone for 5 international conferences. Can you go without? That is UN HRC, ASEAN, and other one was BIMSTEC. So we need to go those things. If I don't go, somebody else must go. So we look at different levels. Sometimes officials go, sometimes state minister go, sometimes I go. In the most important summits and conferences, His Excellency the President goes. And that's how we build bridges. That's why we create a relationship. And that's my job. Foreign minister has to travel. So that's unfair. And that amount that have been attributed to me is also totally false. That's not only mine. With me, 22 officials for 7 visits have gone, depending on the subject. For example, if I go to UN, I need to get people from the Justice Ministry. I need to get people from the AG's department. So it is the combined expenses of all. It has been mischievously misled the public by giving the impression that as I have spent that amount. To be honest, it is only my tickets and the hotel fees, nothing else. I always go and stay in a very ordinary hotel, but all this while the foreign ministry had reserved for the normal level of occupation. But I think that's no one is taken seriously other than the people who are politically motivated. The foreign minister need to travel.
How is Sri Lanka's foreign relations as we speak? Using your visits, of course, what is your understanding as far as Sri Lanka is concerned? Do we see more support coming towards us? These major countries, are they supportive of our cause?
I think we have, if you look at last year, if not for the support of the rest of the world, we wouldn't have come this far. It is kind of a massive diplomatic achievement for us to get the Paris Club, the Japan, the Indians, and the Chinese all to come together and give us debt assurances. The massive achievement. And then Indians, the way they helped us, unthinkable. A country which was bankrupt, for them to come forward and give us support for 3.9 billion worth of things. And the US to invite me for a bilateral relationship during a very difficult period of time to meet Mr. Blinken and also meet Samantha Power and get $270 million worth of support during the last year alone. And their support at the IMF and the Chinese, we all know Chinese have differences in the manner that need to be restructured, but despite all the differences, they supported our cause and they continue to support our cause. And they have extended an official invitation to me to discuss the other issues. So, I cannot expect anything better than that. And one example I will give it to you because of the relationship that we have built. When the IMF discussions, we were focusing on 4 big players, that is the Japan, Paris Club, India, and China. In the process, we have not forgotten about small creditors, 3 countries, Kuwait, Pakistan, and Iran. We had just 3 days to get their consent. And when Lazard and the central bank told us, we call all the ambassadors here, I took a call to all of them. within 3 days, all of them gave their consent to us for the debt restructuring. That's the kind of relationship we have managed to establish and build. So, when people can say anything, but results are there to see for everyone. Our relationship is building. Tourists are coming. More opening for jobs have been given. Last year, 307,000 Sri Lankans went out of the country. 258,000 of those jobs came from the Gulf. Japan has opened up for us. Romania has opened up for us. Korea has opened up for us. And our relationships are growing very, very well. And China is continue to come and invest in our country. Sinopec, hoping to meet them also. Sinopec is coming in. Sinopec is looking at a refinery. And then you saw the port. They are investing $400 million worth of further investment. So, given the circumstances that we were 1 year ago, I could be only proud as a team under the able and visionary leadership of President Wickremesinghe. We have managed to damage control and take all our partners, both bilateral and multilateral, on board in structuring our recovery.
But are some of these countries sort of fighting for a stake among themselves in Sri Lanka? I mean, India, China, they have issues among themselves. Pakistan, then the US. Some feel that Sri Lanka has become a battleground for these countries.
Yeah, with that comes opportunity too. Sri Lanka, because of our location, because where we situate, because our relationship with all these countries, comes a lot of opportunity. I mean, in a world which is increasingly becoming multipolar, so this is natural. So globalization is taking place, and everybody will vie for their influence here. But we need to carefully thread the path, talk to all of them, and create a situation where we have always been a peaceful zone in the Indian Ocean and create opportunities for all, for prosperity. So we are doing exactly that. And it's important we also need to understand, despite the differences, both India and China working together in BRICS, and I think bilaterally, their trade is massive, humongous. So they continue to work with each other. I think we have advocated that we got to also multi-align ourselves, work with everyone. We cannot be tied down for one camp or one country. But in the meantime, we also need to keep in our mind that India is our largest neighbor and closest neighbor, and any unnecessary tensions and creating doubts in their mind, legitimate doubts in their mind of their security concern, need to be taken into consideration. So we understand all those things. We need to learn from the past. We need to study the history. We need to see what is happening all over the world and strategize a course which is good for us, good for the neighbors, good for the region, and good for Asia Pacific. Thank you.
So we will not do anything which would hurt India's concerns or hurt India.
Yes, we don't need to do that because India's legitimate security concerns need to be taken into consideration. Because it's important that we need a very peaceful region. So creating any tension is not good for us, not good for the region, not good for our neighbors. We are not going to do that. I don't think any sensible country will expect us also to do that. So we need to.
Can we say like when India says, okay, don't let a Chinese ship to come to our waters? I mean, is that fair for us to say, okay, no, because we need to maintain a strong relationship with India?
Yeah, I won't speculate, but case by case, we need to look at it. What are the pros and cons on that? But ultimately, Sri Lanka need to take the decision which is best for the Sri Lanka. What is best for Sri Lanka is also what is good to maintain a peaceful atmosphere within and outside the Sri Lankan territorial waters. So we take all those into consideration. But Sri Lanka is open to do business with everyone and anyone. That's our legacy. We have been non-aligned for a long period of time. which gives us the base to work with everybody. Nobody can point finger and say that we have been in this camp, that camp. We have been working with anyone and everyone. So this is time right now. We cannot stay away and stay away from action. We need to be in action in order to capture the opportunities which is available on a growing world. And I think 2/3 of the future growth during the next 20 to 30 years will come from Asia Pacific. So there is an opportunity in that. So when India grows, when the Asia Pacific grows, we can actually tag along with it. So we need to be smart enough to understand that, and actually we need to propose. We should be a strong proponent of a free and rule-based, known, predictable governance of trade and other passage through Indian Ocean and Asia Pacific. But those rules must be disclosed in advance.
Yes. Since we're talking about foreign policy, and since I'm based in Australia, I also wanted to touch a bit about Sri Lanka's relationship with Australia, especially when it comes to working together on the illegal migration issue, or as the boat people, as they call it. How is Sri Lanka working with Australia, not just specifically on that issue, but overall, how is the relationship?
I think Australian relationship has improved a lot during the recent past, and the current government also has a very engaging policy. So basically, that's very good. Over a period of time, I think Sri Lanka had been a responsible international partner, had worked very closely with Australia to prevent human trafficking. And we are also extremely grateful that Australia had provided a lot of opportunities for Sri Lankans and people of Sri Lankan origin. And Sri Lankans are contributing toward the economic growth and the social cohesion in Australia. So it's a win-win kind of a partnership. We look forward to improve it further in terms of trade, investment, and collaboration in education. So we would like them to look at Sri Lanka as a regional hub to promote their world-class educational universities. So that could attract particularly a lot of South Asian region students, particularly from the southern Indian states. 5 of them have more than 2 to 3 million population. So there is a lot of opportunities. I think we are working on that. State Minister visited Australia about two months ago. They had a very good discussion. Hopefully, we will continue to work with them to strengthen this relationship that we have, and we value very much the Australian relationship for a long period of time. And we are also grateful for Australians to come forward and supporting us during the crisis last year. I think close to about 60 million Australian dollars they supported through various charities to support the most vulnerable in Sri Lanka, apart from supporting our effort to tackle human trafficking.
Now, so we still see a lot of Sri Lankans leaving the country. This has been discussed a lot in Parliament as well. This brain drain that professionals are leaving Sri Lanka. What sort of message can you give those who are trying even now to leave the country, saying that there is no stability, fearing for the future? What sort of message can you give them?
Yeah, I'm afraid I don't have a very straight message for them. To be fair by them, they have worked hard in this country. As a nation, all of us have failed them. They have limited opportunities in the country. It's have been a very difficult time for them. But what we can do is, rather than giving them a message, on the ground, work hard and turn our economy around, create opportunities for them, bring investment into the country, provide them world-class opportunities so they can come back one day and settle down. I know a lot of people, though they go, though they are physically in other part of the world, they are basically emotionally and mentally sometime here in Sri Lanka. We know that not that they want to give up their country and go, but the circumstances have forced them to kind of migrate. So we need to provide an opportunity, just like the Indians have provided, for them to come back to our country and contribute with their expertise what they have gained. But one good thing or a silver lining for Sri Lanka is that Sri Lanka continue to produce good grades and graduates and the others. So I am sure, though in the short term we will find it difficulty in replacing the middle and senior management positions. Once these school leavers and the graduates who are coming out get themselves fast track and train themselves, they should be able to fit in here and give leadership to the next phase of Sri Lanka's the development. How this is not a new phenomenon. This has happened even in the past. Even in 2014, 307,000 Sri Lankans migrated compared to the 312,000 last year. And if you carefully look at it, look at IIT, the best university in India, in the Institute of Technology in New Delhi, in early 80s, 70 to 80% of their graduates also went to United States and the other parts of it. So now they have gone there and holding important position and then helpful in creating that India, which is going to be world's third biggest economy by 2029-30. So we believe Sri Lankans also could do the same thing. It's a difficult situation for us, but we won't find fault with it. We need to find, that's the responsibility of those who are here in Sri Lanka to create a conducive environment for them to come back.
And like you said,
I can't hear you.
Yeah. Like you said, this is not something that was created yesterday or today. A number of Sri Lankans have been leaving even in the past as well. And here, when I speak to some of the Sri Lankans, they say that successive governments have failed them. Shouldn't there be something on the political front that should be taken as well, as far as political parties are concerned, to ensure that there is political stability for Sri Lankans who left to come back, and to also prevent more Sri Lankans from leaving the country?
I think it's time. We need to agree on at least. Now we can't be doing politics in everything. Particularly on economy and reconciliation, there has to be broader consensus and work towards it. It's very, very important. For example, if you take up India, in 1991, they went through a similar or even more difficult economic transition, because the country is so big. Sri Lanka is just 22 million people. The Indians at that time, probably 1.2 billion people. But they came out with an economic recovery plan, mooted by Dr. Manmohan Singh, supported by the then Prime Minister Narasimha Rao, but they continued with and stick with that despite the government changes. Government has changed since then. Government have come and gone. Mr. Narasimha Rao was replaced by Mr. Vajpayee. Thereafter, Mr. Gujral came in. Thereafter, Mr. Devagowda came in. Thereafter, Mr. Manmohan Singh himself had 2 stints. Thereafter, now Mr. Modi, 2 stints. But the economic policy had been consistent, as a result of which they have made a platform for great recovery, and also poised to be a world leader when it comes to economy. I think it's time for Sri Lankan politicians to leave aside these petty party differences just to please the voters at elections, and oppose everything what the government does, and government oppose everything what the opposition says. So therefore, we have to agree on broader economic policies, so that despite whatever happens, parties can come, parties can go, but policies are consistent and economy will grow. Because like Japan until very recently, like in Italy, government comes, government goes, but economy grows. That is because consistent policy. India is the other example. I think it's time for us to get into that. And number 2 is we have to find a way to bring true reconciliation between our communities. We must create a platform for Tamils to feel in this country they are also equal citizens of this country, and they can live with dignity. So that I know, despite few extreme elements says whatever, most of the Tamils whom I want I meet, particularly the elder generation, wants to come back to Sri Lanka. They want to come back to Sri Lanka, settle down, and die in Sri Lanka. This is what they are saying. So we need to create that platform. These are two biggest challenges. I think we need to take it. I think President Vikram Singh has a golden opportunity here because he himself has always been had a good grasp of things when it comes to macroeconomic policies, and also have been advocating reconciliation. For the first time in the history, he's been supported by the nationalists. So if he can convince majority of them, and it's important that I urge and I plead the Tamil parties and also to the other opposition parties also on these broad lines, don't do politics. And because if you ask a pound of flesh, it's not going to come. We need to give in a certain amount of it and start small steps towards reconciliation and permanent peace. If you ask that overnight, I don't think nothing will happen. So, for example, I'll give you a small example. When I took over the Justice Ministry, there were about 400 people who were behind bars on PTA charges. But we did it very gradually. Initially, what we did, we appointed an advisory committee under former Chief Justice Asoka de Silva. He looked into the matter and advised about more than 150 cases and asked them to settle it and give them bail. Then we slowly amended the bail provisions. It was criticized, nobody supported, but that introduced bail after 1 year. Earlier, indefinitely you could have kept in. That has now come, and I understand other than just 3 people, or no one else is behind bars without charges or inside on long-term detention. These are massive achievement from 400 to 3. So now we are in a position where the ATA, though it is being criticized and we are looked into, we have suggested 1 year to be brought down to just 3 months. So after 3 months, you can go to courts. So you can make progress. These progress won't come overnight. What to do, because differences are so wide. So I think it's time that we all work together and create a situation and atmosphere for the Sri Lankan to treat each other with dignity and create that platform where we can actually achieve our real potential. Sri Lankans are world class, our location is world class, our resources are world class, our people are good. It's just a very handful of hate mongers that created this for Sri Lanka. I think it's important that
Sri Lanka is still on the agenda of the Human Rights Council, and as long as that continues, I guess the negative publicity, these issues are also going to come up as well. I mean, how are you going to give assurances for countries and individuals who are seeking answers for some of the incidents that took place both during the war and after that?
Yeah, I think even that's what I'm saying. Basically, there are few areas. One is devolution of power need to take place, and that's what I'm saying. There had to be broad political consensus without rabble rousing and creating a ghost which is not there. So important that a meaningful devolution of power take place, in my opinion, within a unitary state. Number 2 is whatever the land which could be released to the Tamils to go and start their cultivations and whatever the other animal husbandry or whatever it is, that has to take place. Then these laws like the PTA need to be meaningfully restructured in line with the international standard. And then we have already given pardon 27 or more LTT suspects who have been convicted and under PTA. Other cases need to be fast-tracked. And then finally, the accountability issue need to be looked at. That is why we are suggesting a TRC. A lot of debate is going on. So it's important that TRC mechanism once and for all encapture all these concerns and come out with a credible mechanism so that we solve our problem at Sri Lanka, and then over a period of time things will settle down when there is meaningful progress. That's what I'm saying. Both government and opposition must get together and have broader consensus on these 3 issues: devolution, economy, and accountability.
Right, we'll have to leave it at that. Minister Ali Sabry, thank you so much for taking time and joining us on the program today.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
And that's all the time we have for you for On Fire for this week. Till next time, stay safe.